Bully, bully, what a fine day it is. I'd like to welcome you to the home of friends of mine here at Antietam, where our nation saw the single bloodiest day in our history. Tomorrow I will give a speech to dedicate a memorial to the soldiers of New Jersey who died here. But I wanted all of you to hear this speech first, because it goes to all of those who serve this nation, who sacrifice their lives, their limbs, and sometimes so much more that they leave behind. Listen well to these words, and maybe you will understand when you see a veteran, especially those missing limbs, those who have fallen on hard times. Maybe you will reach out to them and show them how much you appreciate their sacrifice. For any of you that do not know, I am President Theodore Roosevelt, but you may call me TR. My friends do, and I consider all Americans, and particularly all veterans, to be my friends. Governor Murphy, veterans of New Jersey, men of the Grand Army, and all of those who have sacrificed for this nation. We meet today upon one of the great battlefields of the Civil War. No other battle of the Civil War lasting but one day shows as great a percentage of loss as that which occurred here upon the day on which Antietam was fought. Moreover, in its ultimate effect, this battle was of momentous and even decisive importance. For when it had ended and Lee had retreated south of the Potomac, President Lincoln forthwith published that immortal paper, the Preliminary Declaration of Emancipation. The paper which decided that the Civil War, besides being a war for the preservation of the Union, should be a war for the emancipation of the slave. So that from that time onward, the causes of the Union and of freedom and of national greatness and individual liberty were one and the same. If the issue, as of Antietam, had been other than it was, it is probable that at least two European powers would have recognized the independence of the Confederacy, so that you who fought here 41 years ago have the profound satisfaction of feeling that you played well your part in one of those crises. So that you who fought here 41 years ago have the profound satisfaction of feeling that you played well your part in one of those crises, big with the fate of all mankind. You men of the Grand Army, by your victory not only rendered all Americans your debtors forevermore, but you rendered all humanity your debtors. If the Union had been dissolved, if the great edifice built with blood and sweat and tears by mighty Washington and his compeers had gone down in wreck and ruin, the result would have been an incalculable calamity, not only for our people, and most of all for those who in such event would have seemingly triumphed, but for all of mankind. The great American Republic would have become a memory of derision, and the failure of the experiment of self-government by a great people on a great scale would have delighted the heart of every foe of Republican institutions. Our country, now so great and so wonderful, would have been split into little jangling rival nationalities, each with a history both bloody and contemptible. It was because you, the men who wear the button of the Grand Army, triumphed in those dark years, that every American now holds his head high, proud in the knowledge that he belongs to a nation whose glorious past and great present will be succeeded by an even mightier future. Whereas you have failed, we would all of us, north, south, east, and west, be now treated by other nations, at the best with contemptuous tolerance, at the worst with overbearing insolence. Moreover, every friend of liberty, every believer in self-government, every idealist who wished to see his ideals take practical shape wherever he might be in the world, knew that the successes of all in which he most believed was bound up with the success of the Union armies in this great struggle. I confidently predict that when the final judgment of history is recorded, it will be said that in no other war of which we have written record was it more vital, essential for the welfare of mankind, that victory should rest where it finally rested. There have been other wars, individual freedom, events that changed the world. There have been other wars for national greatness. But there has never been another war in which the issues at stake were so large, looked at from the standpoint. We take just pride in the great deeds of the men of 1776. But we must keep in mind that the Revolutionary War would have been shorn of well nigh all of its results had the side of union and liberty been defeated in the Civil War. In such case, we should merely have added another to the lamentable long list of cases in which peoples have shown that after winning their liberty, they are wholly unable to make good use of it. It now rests with us in the civil life to make good by our deeds the deeds which you who wore the blue did in the great years from 61 to 65. The patriotism, the courage, the unflinching resolution, and steadfast endurance of the soldiers whose triumph on was part are crowned by civic finality at Appomattox, must be supplemented on our part by civic courage, civic honesty, cool sanity, steadfast adherence to the immutable laws of righteousness. You left us a reunited country, reunited in fact as well as name. You left us the right of brotherhood with your gallant foes who wore the gray. The right to feel pride in their courage and their high fealty to an ideal, even though they warred against the stars in their courses. You left us also the most splendid example of what brotherhood really means. For in your careers you showed in practical fashion that the only safety in our American life lies in spurning the accidental distinctions which sunder one man from another, and in paying homage to each man only because of what he essentially is, in stripping off the husks of occupation, of position, of accident, until the soul stands forth revealed, and we know the man only because of his worth as a man. There was no patent device for securing victory by force of arms 40 years ago, and there is no patent device for securing victory of forces of righteousness in civil life now. In each case of all important factor was and is the character of the individual man. Good laws in the state, like a good organization in the army, are the expressions of national character. Leaders will be developed in military and civilian life alike, and weapons and tactics change from generation to generation as methods of achieving good government change in civic affairs. But the fundamental qualities which make for good citizenship do not change any more than the fundamental qualities which make for good soldiers. In the long run in the Civil War, the thing that counted more than aught else was the fact that the average American had the fighting edge, had within him the spirit which spurred him on through toil and danger, fatigue and hardship, to the goal of the splendid ultimate triumph. So in achieving good government, the fundamental factor must be the character of the average citizen. That average citizen's power of hatred for what is mean and base and unlovely, his fearless scorn of cowardice, and his determination to war unyielding against the dark and sordid forces of evil. We need the same type of character now that was needed by the men who, with Washington, first inaugurated the system of free popular government, the system of combined liberty and order here on this continent, that was needed by the men who, under Lincoln, perpetuated the government which had thus been inaugurated in the days of Washington. The qualities essential to good citizenship and to good public service now are in all their essentials exactly the same as in the days when the first Congresses met to provide for the establishment of the Union, as in the days 70 years ago when Congresses met which had to provide for its salvation. There are many qualities which we need alike in private citizenship and in public man. But the three above all that stand out are courage, honesty, and common sense. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As you listen to those words today, I want you to understand this nation owes you a debt that can never be repaid. On this day, celebrate all of those who stood beside you, all of those who sacrificed, and those of you who have not been asked to sacrifice. Reach out to a veteran. Tell them how much you appreciate all that they've done so that you can live your life in peace and in freedom. And above all, use your courage, honor, and freedom to make this nation what it should be to the entire world.